Well, it's that time of year again. It's been a busy year for games in 2022 with many AAA releases and some surprise indie hits as well. 2022 has been a memorable year of gaming, plus we've had our fair share of delays as well, making 2023 a mouth-watering prospect. But that is next year, and that is not what we're here for today. Today is about the here and now and the last 12 months. So let's dive into my game of the year for 2022. At number 10, we've got Signalis. This one is an excellent survival horror game inspired by Resident Evil and Silent Hill. In Signalis, you play as an android called Elster. You wake up in a rundown facility, quickly find out all the other androids have been killed, plus some of their corpses are reanimated and trying to attack you. So the game is about isolation with a pinch of Alice through the looking glass, occasionally crawling through holes in the ground to reveal new play spaces. This is survival horror with a pixel art look and feel from a semi-top-down view. At first may seem very simple, in puzzles to solve and leads to follow, but I'd recommend sticking with it until the end. Now, of all the games that came out this year, I often go back to how Signalis made me feel, and also it's available on Xbox Game Pass. Well, at number 9, we've got Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So this one is the 9th generation of Pokemon games, and finally we've got a true open world in Pokemon that we've wanted for years. Unfortunately, we've also got some of the biggest technical problems we've seen in a Pokemon game perhaps ever. And for some, this hasn't diminished their fun. For others, it's been a step too far. Game Freak, the Pokemon Company, and Nintendo, what are you doing? But buried under the technical mess is probably one of the best Pokemon experiences I've had since Pokemon Red and Blue. So if you're a Pokemon fan, then you're going to get a lot out of this game. The open world is a major step forward in the franchise, and it's probably the closest we've got to a Pokemon game that fans have been clamouring for since the reveal of Sword and Shield. Legends Arceus was an iteration in the right direction. Scarlet and Violet is also another. But Game Freak, you just need to take more time on these games. There's no need to release 2 major Pokemon games in the same year. It clearly isn't working for you and you need some help. Even though it's broken in so many ways, I did love my time playing it and still go back to it weeks after its release. Well, next up at number 8, we've got Tunic. This one is an isometric Zelda Souls mashup with plenty of exploration, puzzles, and surprisingly tough boss battles. One of the biggest inspirations for the game is the Legend of Zelda series. And in those games, you generally start out with a sword or something like that, but Tunic attempts to flip that a little bit by starting out with a stick. But don't worry too much, a sword isn't too far away. Leads you into one of the big features of Tunic, and that is exploration. The game does a really good job of nudging you to explore, plus it makes it very worthwhile and rewarding at the same time. So when you first start out, you're boxed in via the bushes, and therefore a sword is very necessary to cut down the bushes and find your way out of there. Tunic is another game I thought a lot about while not playing it in 2022, which is normally a good sign. My first love in video games is the Legend of Zelda series. This comes very close to reliving that type of game. Plus also you've got deciphering the instruction manual. That is a really, really nice feature. Well, number 7, we've got Kirby and the Forgotten Land. This one is the latest outing for our spherical pink friend. His first outing in 3D. The game is developed by HAL Laboratories, and they've done a wonderful job converting Kirby to the 3D environment, providing some excellent combat, great platforming, and overall a very wholesome and fun experience on Nintendo Switch. As a Kirby fan, there's plenty of nostalgia found in Forgotten Land as well. Kirby's classic copy abilities are present, and perhaps the best they've ever been. You can suck in an enemy and take on some of their abilities, plus you've got a load of new features. Mouthful mode has been introduced, which left many Kirby fans surprised during that original Nintendo Direct where they first announced it. Kirby inhaled a whole car, and then had the ability to drive around just like the object he's holding in his mouth. The mechanic is more than just fun humour though, it's your key to solving puzzles in the game by taking on abilities of the objects in really interesting ways. Kirby surprised many in 2022, probably being Nintendo's most successful title of the year. Pokemon does take that one just by sales alone, but Kirby was bigger than many people's expectations, plus I think it's going to be in the conversation for many outlets in Game of the Year 2022. Well, number 6, we got OlliOlli Worlds. This one was an early entry in 2022. So OlliOlli Worlds is a skating game from Roll7. Rather than your Tony Hawk or your skate type of skateboarding game, this is a 2D side-scroll that's very easy to pick up and play. Great game for long trick sessions, or if you want to fill in gaps in your schedule. OlliOlli World has great gameplay, and the game grabs you immediately. Much like games like Celeste or Super Meat Boy, you probably die a bunch, you're going to be taught along the way. OlliOlli World wasn't really on my radar at all at first. I saw it on Nintendo Direct back in 2021. Didn't really think it was going to be for me, but after a few hours with the game, I can honestly say OlliOlli World is really, really good fun. And it's quick, easy to pick up, plus it's a very relaxing game to get into and chill to. The animation and music back up the excellent gameplay, and whether you're playing solo or against friends, there's something here for all players. Well, Roll7 had a great year in 2022 with two great games, OlliOlli World and Rollerdrome, two very different titles. Personally, I think OlliOlli World is the best. Right, number 5, we got Marvel Snap. So I've never had a mobile game on my personal Game of the Year list before, so this is a first for me. Marvel Snap's a mobile card game that managed to reduce the complexity and distill it into micro bursts of distilled fun. The game is getting a wide range of praise from all angles, and for good reason. This one is short, sharp and snappy, and also loads of fun. Not normally a fan of mobile games, I steer well clear of them. Never really been into digital card games either, but despite these contradicting facts, I'm really enjoying Marvel Snap, and I find myself playing when I got a few moments throughout the day. The games are short, quick and entertaining. Now if you've got a commute, this one's going to pair perfectly well with that, although it equally fits into relaxing on the couch or a quick game before I go to bed. Now I've gone from knowing nothing about the game to playing it most days per week, plus it's free to download on iOS and Android, so I would recommend giving it a try. At number 4, we got Vampire Survivors. This one is a bullet hell-like shooter, then throws in roguelike mechanics to create a surprising and very satisfying game, one that's likely going to bring you back time and time again. The objective of the game is to survive, and there's an increasing number of enemies coming your way trying to kill you. Then it gets really frantic quite quickly. Starts out with only a few enemies, but then the screen fills up really quickly, and soon hundreds of enemies are circling around you, trying to eliminate you. The game is played from a top-down perspective, and the map appears to go on and on, so you can choose to run away if you wish. There's only so far you can run before you get stuck into battle. Vampire Survivors recently had its 1.0 release. It's also available on Xbox Game Pass and Xbox now. It shows a lot of promise, and if the team keeps supporting it like they have done in 2022, this one is going to be a massive hit and hit the heights of another very successful indie game from Early Access called Hades. It's fairly unique in that it blends bullet hell and roguelike mechanics, and the core gameplay loop is really good fun. So there are a few issues with the starting and later moments of runs, but then you got the Goldilocks zone in the middle of games, and it feels absolutely amazing. If the team can tap into that, expand on it, then it could be an absolute winner. Well, next up we got my number 3, it's Destiny 2. So Destiny 2 had a funny year. Started strong with the release of the Witch Queen, introducing the new legendary campaigns. Plus we've had 4 seasons since then. Bungie have overhauled the light subclasses, the sandbox, the abilities. However, it seems that enthusiasm for Destiny 2 within the community is at an all-time low. Personally, I am still enjoying it. I like the revamp of events. Currently, we're focused on the holiday event called The Dawning. Much of the conversation this year has been around the overly grindy activities, not respecting players' time, PvP being in the worst state the game has ever seen, and the stale seasonal model. Bungie said they clocked these issues, but it's going to take time for feedback to work through into the content cycle, probably the middle of next year. So it's been a year of ups and downs for Destiny 2, but Lightfall is on the horizon for early 2023, and with that comes a lot of new features, and I, for one, am very excited. Okay, next up we got my top 2, and which order are they going to be in? Well, at number 2, it's Elden Ring. So it was a coin flip for me for Game of the Year between Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. I think objectively Elden Ring is the better game, but I didn't enjoy it as much as playing through God of War. Therefore, God of War Ragnarok is my Game of the Year in 2022. Elden Ring feels like the next level of open world RPGs, something that Breath of the Wild did back in 2017 and The Witcher 3 did before that. It feels like Elden Ring is the next step. My main issue with the game is that I'm terrible at Souls games. It tends to ruin my experience of the games. But that's a me problem and not the game's problem. Elden Ring was a real moment in 2022, one that's going to live long in the memory, as a game like this only comes around once or twice per generation. There isn't really much more to be said about Elden Ring that hasn't been said already by better and more qualified writers, so if you haven't played it, get out there and give it a try. Finally then, it's my number 1, it's God of War Ragnarok. So it's always going to be tough to follow up on one of the best games of the last generation, and God of War Ragnarok lived up to my very high expectations. I played through the original in 2018, then played through it again recently to get ready for Ragnarok. And this sequel manages to deliver when it comes to narrative, performance and action. Visually, it's stunning. The audio work is amazing. It's a really big game and managed to keep great pace throughout the game, twisting and turning, taking you from one location to the other rapidly and mixing up the gameplay like puzzles, exploration, action, and also boss fights as well. God of War Ragnarok's an excellent sequel, somehow manages to go above and beyond the original game to give us a great ending to Kratos and Atreus' Norse adventures. There's so many first-class efforts here from Sony Santa Monica, including the writing, the performance, the artwork, the character modelling, the audio design, the combat. The game is a true 10 out of 10 in every way. I don't think it is a perfect video game. It is similar to 2018's God of War, albeit turned up to 11. One thing I am certain of, this release is going to cement Sony Santa Monica as one of the best developers in the world, up there with Naughty Dog, and also the Zelda team from Nintendo. So whatever they do next, sign me up, because I'm definitely going to get it. Okay, now I'm going to do a recap of my Game of the Year 2022. So at 10, we've got Signalis. At 9, it's Pokemon Scarlet. 8, it's Tunic. 7, it's Kirby and the Forgotten Land. 6, it's OlliOlli World. 5, Marvel Snap. 4, Vampire Survivors. 3, Destiny 2. Number 2, it's Elden Ring. Then at number 1 for my Game of the Year 2022, that is God of War Ragnarok. Well, that is it for my Game of the Year 2022. I hope you enjoyed it, and let me know your Game of the Year on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast, on Patreon at patreon.com/This Week in Video Games, or you can email me at podcast@thisweekinvideogames.com. And as always, thank you so much for watching or listening. Hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. Or you can check me out on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the videos on the channel. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.